Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring, well, something truly special.
Oh, yeah.
Annu's album, Experience.
Yeah.
And it's, not just music. It's like a whole world that she's built around motherhood and sound and even the cosmos.
Wow.
You've sent in some really incredible material about it.
Oh, great.
Including details on the album and even the AR booklet.
Oh, cool.
So, before we dive in,
Yeah.
a huge thank you to Dulaxi for sponsoring this deep dive.
Absolutely.
You make these explorations possible.
Oh, sure.
Now, Annu is known for immersive sonic art.
Right?
But this goes, I think, way beyond, your typical album. We're talking installations, visuals, even collaborations with astronauts.
Yeah, it's fascinating how she brings together like all these diverse influences, It speaks to her, I think, overall artistic purpose, which, from what I understand, is to unveil beauty, evoke awe, and shift perceptions.
Right.
All through the power of sound.
It's pretty amazing what she's attempting. Okay, so Experience was released December 21st, 2024. And it's described as a sonic archive of her transformation through motherhood.
Okay.
They're calling it future dream pop, which already has me intrigued.
Yeah, that genre label alone, I think, hints at a blend of ethereal soundscapes and like these forward-thinking production techniques.
Totally. And, from what you've gathered, it sounds like she's really focused on creating a feeling of immersion.
Yeah.
There's a mention of ethereal vocals and lush synths and a real attention to detail.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like something you just put on in the background.
No, not at all.
It's designed to be an experience, much like an immersive art installation or even a virtual reality environment, Annu wants to draw you into the world she's created.
And then there's the AR booklet, right, that she released alongside the album, Experience Songs Plus Reflections. It's 52 pages, packed with AR features, and meant to let you, quote, feel, see, and live within the music.
Wow.
Pretty intense.
That's a really interesting approach. Most artists, I think, when they put out an album, focus on the visual aspects, but Annu is creating like a truly multi-sensory experience by incorporating augmented reality.
Right. It's like she's taking the idea of liner notes and turning it into a whole other dimension of the album.
For sure.
Okay, so let's jump into some of the individual tracks.
Let's do it.
We won't be able to cover all 12.
Okay.
But you've highlighted some that really stand out.
It.
So let's start with Time, the opening track. What struck me right away is the description, this weightless atmosphere, then a pulsing rhythm kicks in, and then Annu's haunting vocals emerge.
Yeah, Time, as the first track, is incredibly important, in setting the tone for the entire album.
Yeah.
It seems like Annu is playing with contrasts here, like the vastness of the weightless atmosphere against the grounded pulse of the rhythm. It's almost like a sonic representation of the concept of time itself, how it can feel both expansive and incredibly personal.
Oh, that's a good point. It's like she's capturing the duality of time, the way you can feel both eternal and fleeting at the same time.
Absolutely. And remember, this is all tied to her experience of motherhood, right? So perhaps the weightless atmosphere represents the unknown, the vastness of what's to come, while the pulsing rhythm, signifies the grounding, the heartbeat of a new life.
Wow, that's a really insightful connection. And it makes me even more curious to hear how she weaves those ideas together musically. Okay, let's move on to track 4, Remember. The description talks about a much more contemplative mood, a serene ambiance with a careful balance between the vocals and electronic elements.
Interesting.
It seems like she's exploring the theme of memory here in a very subtle and nuanced way.
Yeah, the shift in mood from the expansive Time to the introspective Remember is interesting. If Time is about looking forward, Remember seems to be about looking back, delving into the layers of memory.
It's like each track is a different stage of her journey. And it makes you think about how memory itself works, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hazy and dreamlike, other times it's sharp and vivid.
Right, exactly. And the way she balances the vocals and electronic elements could be a sonic representation of that delicate interplay between, I think, past and present.
I'm really curious to hear how she uses specific sounds to create that feeling of memory. Okay, on to track 8, see? And this one is described as starting with a whisper.
Oh, wow, that's certainly an intriguing way to begin a track, right? It creates an instant sense of intimacy and invites the listener to lean in, almost as if they're being let in on a secret.
Right. It's so different from the opening tracks. And then the whisper gradually builds into this layered composition with a mantra-like repetition of, I can see. It's almost like a journey of revelation.
Absolutely. It sounds like she's using minimalism here, starting with the barest element, the whisper, and then gradually layering sounds to create a sense of awakening or understanding. The repetition of I can see could represent the dawning of a new awareness, a shift in perspective.
I love that idea. It's like she's taking us through the process of discovery, from the initial whisper of an idea to the full realization of, I can see. And it makes you wonder, what is it that she's seeing? Is it a literal or metaphorical sight? We'll have to keep listening to find out.
I agree. The build-up to that moment of seeing is creating a lot of anticipation. It makes me want to dive right into the next track.
Me too. This is already shaping up to be such a fascinating journey through sound. Before we move on, though, I want to touch on the final track, Floating.
Ah, yes, the grand finale. This one is described as being completely wordless. Just Annu's voice and a soundscape that creates a feeling of weightlessness, nostalgia, and release.
I'm really intrigued by the idea of ending the album with a wordless track. It's like she's trying to convey something beyond language.
It's a bold choice, and it suggests a desire to tap into a deeper level of emotion, something that transcends words. Perhaps it's a culmination of the entire journey, a moment of transcendence after all the introspection and revelation.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It sounds like floating is the sonic equivalent of letting go, of surrendering to the unknown.
Perhaps it represents the ultimate transformation, the acceptance of the journey with all its complexities and uncertainties.
I can't wait to hear how she uses her voice and sound to create that feeling of weightlessness and release.
It's sure to be an impactful end to an already evocative album. And remember, this wordless expression is layered upon everything we've already discussed. The journey through time, the contemplation of memory, and the moment of seeing.
You're right, it all comes together in this final track. It's like she's weaving a sonic tapestry of experience. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, though, let's take a closer look at the individual tracks. We'll start with Time and really unpack what makes it so captivating.
Yeah, Time is such a powerful opener, It sets the stage for the sonic exploration of motherhood, and it's fascinating how Annu uses contrast to create such a dynamic listening experience.
Right, you were saying that the duality earlier, that sense of time being both vast and intimate, but how does she actually achieve that musically?
Well, think about that weightless atmosphere that she creates at the beginning.
Right.
It's ethereal, spacious, almost like floating in a void. It evokes a sense of the unknown, like the infinite possibilities that lie ahead.
It's like that feeling of looking up at the night sky, and realizing just how small we are in the grand scheme of things.
Exactly. And then that pulsing rhythm enters, grounding us back in the present moment. It's like a heartbeat, steady and insistent, representing the tangible, the here and now.
It's almost like she's mirroring the experience of pregnancy, like that sense of carrying both the vastness of the unknown and the very real physical presence of new life.
Right. And then her vocals come in ethereal and haunting, weaving between those two sonic worlds. It's like she's navigating the space between the cosmic and the personal, the infinite and the finite.
It's so clever how she uses those contrasting sounds to create a sense of tension and release.
Yeah.
It's like you're being pulled in two directions at once, but somehow it all works together harmoniously.
It's a testament to her skill as a composer.
Totally.
She's not afraid to experiment with different textures and rhythms, and she uses them to create a truly immersive listening experience.
For sure.
Okay, let's shift gears to track 4, Remember, which takes us on a completely different journey.
Right. Yeah, this one feels much more introspective.
Absolutely.
It's described as having a serene ambiance with a careful balance between the vocals and the electronic elements. It seems like she's exploring the theme of memory here in a very subtle and nuanced way.
Absolutely. If Time is about looking forward, Remember is all about looking back, delving into those layers of personal history and emotion that shape who we are.
And memory is such a complex thing, isn't it? Sometimes it's clear and vivid. Other times it's hazy and fragmented.
Yeah.
I wonder how she translates that into music.
Well, the description mentions a balance between vocals and electronic elements, so perhaps she uses those elements to represent different aspects of memory. The vocals could symbolize the personal, the emotional core of a memory, while the electronic elements create a sense of atmosphere, like the context or environment in which the memory took place.
That's an interesting thought. It's like she's creating a sonic landscape for memory where each element plays a specific role in evoking a particular feeling or image.
And remember, she's called this album a sonic archive of her transformation through motherhood.
Right.
So perhaps Remember is reflecting on memories from her own past, those formative experiences that have shaped her journey.
It makes me think about how our memories are always with us, even if they're not always at the forefront of our minds. They shape our perceptions, our relationships, our entire sense of self.
Exactly, and Annu seems to be using music to explore how those memories resurface, how they can be triggered by a sound, a smell, a place. It's like she's inviting us to delve into our own memories, to uncover those hidden layers of experience that make us who we are.
It's really making me think about the power of music to evoke emotion and memory. Okay, on to track 8, C, which, if I remember correctly, starts with a whisper.
Yes, it's a bold choice and one that immediately grabs the listener's attention.
Right.
That whisper creates a sense of intimacy and mystery, almost as if we're eavesdropping on a private conversation.
It's such a stark contrast to the grandiosity of time and the introspective mood of remember.
Right, and then as the track progresses, that whisper gradually builds into this layered composition with the repetition of I can see. It's almost like she's taking us on a journey from darkness to light, from ignorance to understanding.
The repetition of I can see feels almost hypnotic, like a mantra that's guiding us toward some sort of revelation.
Exactly. It's like she's peeling back the layers of perception, revealing something that was previously hidden.
Right.
And the gradual buildup of sound creates a sense of anticipation, as if we're slowly approaching a moment of clarity.
It's almost like the process of learning or discovering something new,
Yeah.
You start with a small spark of curiosity, a whisper of an idea, and then it gradually grows and expands until you reach a moment of insight.
And that's what makes this track so compelling. It's not just about hearing those words, I can see, but about experiencing the entire journey that leads up to that moment of realization.
Right. It's like she's inviting us to participate in the act of seeing, to open our eyes and our minds to new possibilities.
And it makes you wonder, what is it that she's seeing? Is it a literal or metaphorical sight? Is it about seeing the world differently or seeing something within herself that she hadn't recognized before?
It's a really thought-provoking track, and it leaves you with a sense of wonder and anticipation. Speaking of anticipation, let's talk about the final track, Floating, which is described as a wordless journey into sound and emotion.
Yeah, this is where Annu's experimentation with sonic texture and atmosphere really comes to the forefront.
Right.
By removing the element of language, she's stripping away any literal meaning and inviting us to experience the music on a purely visceral level.
It's almost like she's saying that words aren't enough to express the depth of what she's trying to convey.
Exactly. It's like she's tapping into a primal, pre-verbal form of communication, using sound to evoke a range of emotions and sensations that might be difficult to articulate with words.
Yeah, the description talks about a feeling of weightlessness, nostalgia, and release. It sounds like she's creating a sonic space for letting go, for surrendering to the unknown.
It's like the culmination of everything we've been talking about, the journey through time, the exploration of memory, the moment of seeing. It all leads to this final point of transcendence, of floating beyond the boundaries of language and logic.
It makes me think about how music can transport us to places that words can't reach, to those realms of pure feeling and sensation.
Right.
It's like she's inviting us to let go of our thoughts and just be present in the moment, carried away by the waves of sound.
And remember, this is the final track on an album about motherhood, about transformation. So perhaps Floating represents that ultimate surrender to the experience, the acceptance of the unknown, the embrace of the journey, wherever it may lead.
I love that interpretation. It's like she's showing us that there's beauty in liberation and letting go and trusting the process.
And it's a powerful message to end the album on.
Totally.
It leaves the listener with a sense of peace and wonder, a reminder that even in the midst of uncertainty and change, there is a profound beauty in simply being.
And before we get lost in the beauty of floating, let's not forget about the incredible AR booklet, Experience, Songs plus Reflections, that Annu created to accompany this album. It takes this whole concept of immersion to a whole new level.
Yeah, it's such a testament to her artistry and her commitment to creating a holistic experience for her listeners. It's not just about listening to the music, but about engaging with it on a deeper level, exploring the layers of meaning and inspiration behind each track.
It's like she's inviting us to step inside her creative process to see the world through her eyes.
Exactly. And the AR technology allows her to bring those multisensory elements into play, the visuals, the personal reflections, the behind-the-scenes glimpses.
Right.
It's like she's adding another dimension to the album, creating a world that you can literally step into and explore.
I love how she's pushing the boundaries of what an album can be. Not just a collection of songs, but a multi-sensory experience, a journey of discovery.
And it makes you wonder what the future holds for music and technology.
Yeah.
The possibilities for creative expression seem endless.
Yeah, it really feels like Annu is leading the way in creating something like completely new and groundbreaking. But before we get too carried away with, the future of music,
Right.
let's bring it back to experience.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground here, the themes, the individual tracks, the AR booklet.
Yeah.
What stands out to you as like the most impactful element of this album?
For me, it's the way that Annu seamlessly blends the personal and the universal, She's telling her own story, her experience of motherhood, but in a way that resonates with, I think, anyone who has ever felt the pull of time, the weight of memory, or the yearning for understanding.
That's such a great point. She's not afraid to be vulnerable and share her own journey, but she does it in a way that invites us to connect with our own experiences. It's like she's saying, here's my story, now what's yours?
Exactly, and she does it through the power of sound, which is such a universal language. Music can bypass the logical mind and speak directly to the heart.
That's what makes experience so special. It's not just an album you listen to, it's an album you feel. It stays with you long after the music stops.
It's true. I think that's the mark of truly great art,
Yeah.
It has the power to move us, to change us, to leave a lasting impression on our souls.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with something to ponder. We talked about the final track, Floating, and how it's completely wordless, right?
Yeah.
Just Annu's voice and this incredible soundscape.
Yeah.
What do you think that she's trying to convey with that choice? What emotions or ideas come to mind when you imagine listening to that track?
That's a great question. For me, it represents a state of pure being, like a surrender to the unknown. It's like she's saying, I've taken you on this journey. Now it's time to let go and simply experience.
I love that interpretation. It's like a final invitation to release all expectations and just be present in the moment.
And it's a fitting end to an album that's all about transformation. The journey may be over, but the transformation continues.
Well said. A huge thank you to Dulaxi for sponsoring this deep dive.
Absolutely.
We wouldn't be able to explore these fascinating sonic worlds without your support.
The pleasure to be here.
And to our listener, we hope this deep dive has inspired you to explore Annu's work and discover the power of sound for yourself. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep those headphones tuned in.